Hello everyone. Today we will be learning how to create rules or firewall rules in PFsense. So you have learned how to install your first PFsense router either on a virtual appliance or you did install it on an actual device. We've created VLANs, and so at this point we want to create our first rule to be able to allow our devices access the internet. So you can either create rules in PFSense to be able to allow your internal devices access the internet, or you can create rules on your WAN interface to be able to allow users or people on the internet access a resource, or maybe a resource like a file server or a web server or a Plex server internally in your network. So let's say you had a Plex server running in your network and you wanted your mom in Florida to be able to access that Plex server and watch certain movies. You're going to have to create rules from your WAN allowing access into that particular port and IP address in your firewall. There's going to be another video I'm going to do because that will involve us doing port forwarding or virtual IPs, and so there's going to be another video covering that one. For this, we're just talking about creating rules from your LAN or any other interface that you have internally that you want to allow these devices or users to be able to access the internet, like open a web page or access a DNS queries or ping a website. We're going to be learning how to create those rules. The first thing you want to do is log into your PFSense web user interface. You go into the firewall option, you select rules, and notice when we come to rules, I have multiple interfaces here. So you want to select the interface that you'll be creating this rule for. So we'll select the secured LAN interface because that's my LAN interface, and you want to do add rule. So once we do the add rule, it brings us to this page. So at this point, we're going to go straight into configuring the rule. The first thing you notice is the action. So action in PFSense, you have three actions. You either have a pass action, you have a block action, or you have a reject action. The pass action is what we want to do. We want to allow any traffic that matches this rule to be passed. So we want to allow this traffic to go through the firewall and get to its destination. The block action, you want to be able to block the packets that match this rule. So if we change this to block, any packets that match this rule that we will be creating, instead of allowing those packets to go through to their destination, PFSense is going to block it. The reject action still does the same thing as block, but with some packets that are kind of supporting this protocol, PFSense will block it and it will send them back a message saying it rejected the packet. That's just the difference between the block and the reject, because the reject is still going to block, but it's going to send a message with it. So we're going to put pass, and we can select disable if we don't want this rule to be enabled by default, but since we want the rule to be enabled and have it go right away, we'll let that be. The interface, you want to pick which interface we're creating this rule for. We're doing it for secure LAN, so we're going to leave it there. If you're doing it for WAN or any other interface, you will select that to match your environment. For the address family, you want to select if you want this rule to apply to just IPv4 IP addresses or just IPv6 or both, depending on your environment. In my environment, I use just IPv4 IP addresses, so I will just let that be as default, but make the changes as you want to meet your needs. So here we're just going to select the protocol. The protocol is basically the protocols that you should know. So it can be either the TCP protocol, it can be UDP, it can be ICMP, and so forth. So you want to pick which protocol you want this rule to match. So for example, if you're creating this rule to let your users access the internet via port 443, you want to use TCP, and then we'll specify the ports that we were selecting. So we'll do TCP because we want to let our users to be able to connect to the internet and browse web pages that use port 443. So we're going to use TCP, and the source we want to select the source for secure LAN network. So everything in the secure LAN network is allowed to go outside and access whichever resource they're trying to access over port 443. So if you were doing this for a specific host, you're going to select single host, and then you will put in the IP address or the host name if you have those set up. But for here, we're just gonna put the whole secure LAN network. And for destination, we want to select the destination network too. So we're just gonna leave this as any. So because we want it to go anywhere into the internet. So anywhere, we'll let it be as any. If you were creating this rule internally, so if you had, for example, an internal DNS server that you wanted your users to use just as DNS server, so you'll be using here for protocol UDP, and then the source will be your internal network, and then the destination you're going to have to select single host or maybe a network, and then you put your destination address of your DNS server on there. If you wanted to restrict this 443 access, you want your users to only be able to access maybe Facebook, you will put single host, and then you put the IP address or the host name of Facebook on there. So the next thing we have to select is the destination port range. So since we're doing this just for HTTPS over port 443, we're going to select HTTPS. If you were doing this for port 80, you will put that on there to match your needs. If you're doing this for a custom port, let's say you want your users to access an FTP server that's running over a weird port, for example, port 2005. So you use order and you specify that port over there where it says custom. So we're just going to leave it at HTTPS. And then I like to select the log packets that are handled by this rule option so that I can see all the logs in my firewall syslog or log page to be able to monitor if this rule is actually functioning or if it's not functioning. And then the last thing you want to do is input the description. So we'll just say allow users to access the internet, and then once you're done, you save your rule. Notice once you save the rule, it asks you to apply changes to make this rule to take an effect. So we're going to apply changes. And now if I go to a browser and try to access google.com, I can get to the internet. So at this point, we should be done. You should be able to know the basics now to be able to create a rule in your PFsense Firewall or PFsense router. Thank you for watching this video, and please do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel.